Research by INSEAD marketing professor Pierre Chandon has already shown us that food marketing, in fact, can make us fat. Well, now he's come up with some suggestions on food marketing and how food marketers can meet their business objectives and encourage us to eat more healthfully. He joins me now on INSEAD Knowledge. Welcome, Pierre Chandon.
Thank you, Shelley.
Okay, before we get to your exact ideas and your concrete suggestions and how food marketing is biasing our consumption habits, what about how marketers are actually trying to make us fat? What have you actually determined?
When we think about marketing, we always think about advertising, and clearly it's a big part of what food marketers do. But there are actually more subtle things related to communication, which, for example, the branding of food as healthy. We've done a lot of research at INSEAD on health halos. We find that if you're just able to promote the food as being healthy on one aspect, gluten-free, low-fat, people think that it's healthy on every aspect, and they also think that it's not fattening. So for example, we have branded chocolate candies as low-fat, and we found that people ate 50% more of it.
But there's lots of calories.
Exactly. I mean, low-fat food doesn't have fewer calories. I mean, it depends. And so here's one example where all of this branding is actually encouraging people to eat more than they think they are. But the good news is that you could also rebrand healthy food. And in this paper, what we say is that we should move away from health. I mean, health is not a big priority for people. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But if you could rebrand food in terms of, for example, sustainability, no harm to animals, just being tastier, fresher, or more simple, traditional food. It's always amazing for me to see that teenagers who cannot stop eating chips and junk food all of a sudden would do a drastic change when they decide to become vegetarians, okay? Because it's really an identity change, and it's very hard for them to stop eating that extra chip, but it's very easy for them to change radically their diet. Why? Because it's a big deal. It's really about changing the world, and so marketers, in terms of branding, should think about branding healthy food, fruits and vegetables, along those dimensions, not just on health. That's preachy, that doesn't work, especially for kids.
And also, food marketing kind of promotes that sort of lifestyle when you think about it, some of the advertising too. So maybe the healthy lifestyle is something that could be promoted.
Yes, absolutely. And so one thing in this research we've tried to do was to show that beyond advertising and promoting lifestyles, etc., there are also all these different ways that marketing influences what we eat that we don't really realize. So for example, if we move to product, okay, there clearly food marketers have found ways to create products that we can't resist because they have more complicated, complex textures of different flavors, different types of foods altogether.
You're talking about biscuits, candies?
Exactly. It's just amazing the innovation in food science that are behind just a simple candy. But beyond the quality, there's also the quantity. And here we know that food marketers have supersized the portions because it's much more profitable for them to do that. Consumers like it because it's cheaper, except that there's a big problem. We don't realize how big portions are. The mind is very bad at geometry. If you double the size of something, it doesn't look twice as big. It looks 50 to 70% bigger. So we have these increased portions, and we eat more of them without realizing it. And that's a problem. So part of the solution, and that's the work we've done here at INSEAD, was to show if you can downsize portions and packages in a smart way, which really means by elongating them. You will be able to cut up to 24% of the size and the volume without people noticing it, and so it will help increase the acceptance of more natural, healthier, smaller portions of food.
Now, product is one of the 4 Ps that you go into in your paper. Product, pricing, promotion, place, the 4 Ps of I guess, food marketing.
Price is one of the key drivers,
sure.
Clearly. And we know that when you have a temporary price promotion, people stockpile because they think that they want to take advantage of the deal. What they don't realize is when you have more, you actually consume it faster. In our research, we found that if it's just more visible at home, it's taking all the space in your fridge, people eat more of it also because they think it's cheaper. And so if you have these cookies you were mentioning that you paid full price, you're going to wait for a special occasion to eat them. But if you got them on a discount, then you may be eating them for no reason.
So price goes down, consumption goes up?
Yeah, and that's very simple when you say that. But what's interestingly, it goes up without people really noticing. And it goes up because you stockpile, number one. So the good news is that you could also use these insights to promote healthier food. And so studies have shown that if you decrease the price of healthier fruits and vegetables, people are going to consume more of it, and the effect may be actually sustained over the long term. So often we have this fear that if we bribe, in a way, for example, children to consume fruit and vegetables with money or with just different ways, then they will eat it just because of the bribe. But actually the research that I've been reviewing this paper shows that it can actually help get kids to develop a taste for the product, which can have a long-term beneficial impact.
You've mentioned placing in the stores too. I mean, if something is at eye level, you can't miss it. So should healthier foods be there? Or?
Right, and in fact, it's very interesting that you mention retailers, because retailers don't actually have an incentive to sell product A versus product B. In fact, retailers wish they could sell more fruits and vegetables, because it's a very important part of their image as being a fresh store, and they actually lose a lot of money there because they have to throw away a lot of these fruits and vegetables. So food marketers can be allies for public health and nutritionists in helping push different products. So one of the studies, for example, that we mentioned in the article, we find that if you just give consumers some idea about how much of their cart has to be filled with healthier products, it just gives them some reference, which will then help them make the healthier choice.
So who might be inclined to put these out? Because you're talking about restaurants, you're talking about food retailers, you might be talking about the food stand on the corner. I mean, how do you get this word out? Food retailers could make, they all make pamphlets for their customers, but how else?
I think at INSEAD, being a business school, we're really uniquely positioned to do that, because we know the language of business and we can talk to business people who come to us. But one thing I've done a lot is spend time with nutritionists. So we have this big alliance with the hospitals in Paris and research centers that was given a lot of money from the French government to actually work together on understanding how the environment, including food marketing, is biasing our decisions, and reaching out to patients, to the general population. I mean, at the end of the day, they're a huge factor in our food decisions. And if we just treat them as the enemy, it probably is going to be counterproductive.
We talked a little earlier about how food marketing kind of touches a lifestyle, and the idea of being a vegetarian, it's kind of a lifestyle. What is our current lifestyle? How does it contribute to obesity, and what challenges are there? People don't have time to eat meals anymore, and the snacking business is growing in the double digits.
So one thing that is protecting, for example, France and more of the traditional countries from the obesity epidemic is, in fact, the fact that we still have a traditional way of eating. So most people eat during lunch and not outside lunch. And whereas the US, for example, it's impossible to buy a stroller, we've had this case, without having 2 cup holders. And people are constantly drinking, eating outside. If you look at the statistics, people eat throughout the day. So a big change is in the attitudes toward eating, and the fact that eating becomes less important. People spend less time, and they have less time as well to cook and to prepare, and they lose the taste and also the know-how to prepare simple, tasty dishes with traditional food. And it's a lot easier to just grab some processed food and fix dinner like this. One thing that's important to realize is you cannot explain obesity by lack of exercise. It's really the increased calorie intake, not a reduction in calorie expenditure, that explains obesity. So it's really from the supply of food. I mean, it's just today it's impossible to walk more than 100 meters and not find food, tasty, cheap, convenient, high calorie food that's just not so good for us.
So how can food marketers meet their business objectives and still we are going to be eating more healthfully? I mean, yes, there's going to have to be some personal responsibility here, but outside of that, how does this work?
There's no one single magical bullet, unfortunately. It's a lot of small steps. We think about reducing package sizes. We think about producing products that are healthier. You could also create new products that help people satiate faster and increase satiety, so the time until meals, and they're working on that. But I think what we need to think about is try to find a way we change our eating environment. It's easier to reduce by 10% the extra calories we eat on every single time we eat than having one big, massive change which is just not sustainable. So a lot of what we're saying in this research is it's a small step approach. Okay, the big moralistic, prescriptive approach of saying eat this, not that, and be good, just doesn't work. But if you stealthily change a little bit your environment, the plates you have at home, the kind of food, where you store it, how big the portions are, you may be able to reduce by this 100 calories, which is really what is driving most of the gain in food. It's not going to be enough for people who are really obese, but for the majority of us who just gaining weight just by eating 100 calories a day, these small changes may actually be enough.
Tell us again the name of the paper that you've just published.
So this is a paper with my colleague Brian Wansink. It's called "Does Food Marketing Have to Make Us Fat?" And it's published in the leading nutrition journal called Nutrition Reviews, because our goal, in fact, was to make all the research that we do at INSEAD and in marketing known to doctors and nutritionists and to a wider range of people than just people who read our journals.
Pierre Chandon, thank you very much for being with us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you, Shirley.